Welcome to Decoding the Beast System, How You Can Escape the Matrix, a podcast that unravels the unseen forces shaping our world and impacting our lives, hosted by Hawley. This podcast boldly exposes the truth behind childhood exploitation, trafficking, ritual abuse, and mind control.
Welcome back to Decoding the Beast System, Season 2, which we're titling this season, The Greater Exodus. There's nothing new under the sun. The scriptures tell us several times when there was an exodus that occurred. And it's my belief that this is a season of exodus as well, of coming out of Babylon, not only for the masses, but also for the survivors of childhood sexual exploitation. At Warrior Bride Ministries, that's who we minister to. And so we want to invite you into that world of ministering healing and deliverance biblically with Yeshua to the survivors of sexual abuse, satanic ritual abuse, and mind control, as well as medical experimentation. So welcome and come along on the ride with us for Season 2. We went over kind of an overview of some of the stuff that we're going to be talking about. And then we got into memories, because what we often find with the survivor when they come is some don't even know that they're survivors of ritual abuse and programming and stuff. But then as we start working with them, the memories start coming up. So we dove into that in episode 2 and 3 and what those memories often look like and how they're dealt with. And so now we're going to get into, okay, so after memories start coming up, then what occurs and what do we have to deal with next? We also, just as a refresher, talked about how when the trauma occurs, that often it will go behind an amnesic wall. And the memory and the age of the child that was getting the abuse would often be arrested at that age. So for instance, if you were age 4, when you had your abuse, when that memory came up, you would often act like a 4-year-old, believe you were a 4-year-old, and be kind of stuck in time and be able to see, the environment you were in, who was there, and things of that sort when that trauma happened. So that's one of the mechanisms Yahweh has given us in his wonderful creation, that when trauma is too severe, it can go behind that amnesic wall until the time is right for the healing to occur. Now, the problem is that the enemy has hijacked that system. All right. And so that's a lot of the clients that come to Warrior Bride Ministries have had stuff like that happen. And so we help them to remove those amnesic walls and to start dealing with those memories. Right. So one of the first things that come up when they start to have these memories is a denial. Right. It's like, no way, this could not be true. Like, I thought I was in the perfect family, that I, went to school, went to church, had this just picket fence, 2 dogs, 2 kids, all these things. How can this really be true? And so there's this I almost make fun of it. It's like, this is not real. It's all made up. This is not real. It's all made up, because I hear that so much. I'm like, I know this is not real. It's all made up. Right. But it is hard. It's hard for them to face it. But not only is it hard for them to face it, the enemy and those who are in the enemy's team purposely put this mechanism in as they're doing the trauma, so that they'll never believe it. Right? So we're going to dive into that more today. And also, yes, we have a new guest with us today. We're so excited about. This is Miss Deborah Flanagan, and she teaches at the ministry and serves the clients. She's just a blessing. She is the leader of Battle Cry, and it's just blossomed ever since. She is very grounded in the Word, so we're so blessed and honored to have her. And then, of course, we have Christie and Georgia with us. All right, so let's get into it. And we're going to call this denial programming, because it is purposely done, right? So fear drives denial, okay? So when they're denying it, there's something in them that is very fearful that makes them want to deny it. There are moments on the healing journey when a memory surfaces, and almost instantly something inside begins to push it away. Suddenly you feel confused, resistant, of an inner, no, that didn't happen. Coming out of denial is terrifying because it can feel like you could be out of control, go crazy, or even kill someone if you allow the truth to surface. That's why we see so much in this country, in this world, people wanting to control things, because there's so much unresolved trauma, right? And they didn't have control during the trauma, so they want to have control now. And so it's so much unresolved trauma. I know we've all experienced that, right? Mm-hmm. So conditioning the child for denial programming often begins in infancy. Infants are abused and tortured, usually by their primary caretakers, and then everyone carries on as if nothing happened. So how confusing is that for a child, right? There's abuse, and there should be a reaction, but instead, the plan of the enemy is just keep going like nothing happened. Like this is not important, or this is normal, starting to put that in their mind that this is not a big event that you just got totally abused. It's normal. We're not going to react, right? A toddler may try to talk about being hurt, only to be told it was just a bad dream. A preschooler may be accused of lying or making up horrifying stories no one will ever believe. A child who keeps hearing that it's just your imagination will cling to that explanation because it makes the pain feel less real. From the very beginning, confusion and denial are layered in so deeply that the child learns to believe none of it actually happened.
It's like gaslighting, right?
It is gaslighting.
They begin it at an early age and begin to just gaslight.
Yeah.
And that becomes a part of their upbringing.
Yeah. Like the minute you're born, they start gaslighting, like just ignoring it or rebuke, the hurt, and it's, oh, that's normal. And, yeah.
And they're like effectively teaching you to stay asleep, to not be awake to things, to not know things, so that they can add on to that. And then they layer it your entire life. You have been so used to ignoring and pretending things aren't happening that things happen right in front of your face and you don't even notice them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the beginning of that.
And don't respond.
Yeah, and don't respond. Just
like, take it.
Yes.
Take it and like it.
They're disregarding what you're saying, and they expect you to disregard what you know to be true.
That's right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anything? Okay, so denial is extensive, and it is trained into a child as soon as they enter programming. After a split occurs, a new part is created, and these parts are created through programming. Not formed naturally, then the part is immediately tested to see whether it will tell. Okay, so for anybody who's just joining us, the splits, that goes back to the trauma, and a split is broken off from the core. You're supposed to be solid. You go through the trauma, you start getting some splits, right? And it starts to be fragmented. So a split occurs and a new part is created, and these parts are created through programming. It's not a natural, because there is a natural DID that happens, that the Lord had put in there, but this is not natural. This is the hijacked. So then they start getting tested to see whether they'll tell. All right. In the formal programming, a fully programmed part is usually taken to an interrogation room, often when a bright light overhead, resembling the setup used when a criminal is questioned. So this would be if you're a little bit older, not from the baby, but a little bit older. They'll take you to a room like you're being interrogated. The child is pressured and coerced into countless ways to see whether they will talk or follow through training and deny. If the child talks, a severe beating follows, and the process starts again. This continues until the child becomes so terrified that they deny instantly, no matter what is done to them and how intense the pressures become. So they are teaching a child through immense measures of like a criminal that, if you talk, you're going to get beat. And so they continue testing them to see, have we abused them and trained them enough that they are going to tell. And if they do tell, they'll go back to the drawing board until they get to the point where they will not tell no matter what.
It's conditioning.
Yeah, It's conditioning. Kind of like how you train a dog.
Okay.
That's exactly what they do.
Yeah.
Because to them, humans are no more important.
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes a response that is, you don't even think about it anymore. It's an automated response.
Yeah,
that's been conditioned into you.
You just don't want to get hurt. So, okay.
Yeah.
But no, it didn't happen. And
Yeah. I'm going to go along with you.
like, yeah, whatever. Just don't hit me, whatever it takes. Just please not again.
Yeah. And we'll be talking about the double binds where they threaten as well. Like, if you do, then this and that, and we'll get into that.
I think it's a setup too, though, because like a setup from the beginning, and they have all their people in place, and they have their officers in all the forces. And I can remember when I was 14, I went to stay with my cousin for the summer, and so because of that, we ended up reporting what had happened, and at least the memories that I had at that point. So it wasn't even SRA at that point. It was just the sexual abuse, and we reported it, and it was the same setup. They put me, I was 14 years old, they put me in a room with a male officer by myself, closed the door, and he was so like just rude and like no compassion, and accusatory. Like I had to prove to him what they did. And then he was just a jerk about it. And I mean, knowing what I know now, then I just know that he was part of it, but I didn't know that then.
Right.
And I can remember him telling me that if I couldn't even tell him what happened, then it must not be real. That's what he said to me.
So it just continues.
So it's, and they don't even vary the script. It's just a repeat.
And that shows how infiltrated it is. Like, even when you go away to a cousin's, it's a different environment, and you end up going and seeing, will she tell here? Which the reality is they probably had that all under control.
Yeah.
It follows you everywhere you go. It's not like you can just move to a different state or like switch family sides or like move in with a grandparent or something. It's still going to find you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they were
everywhere you go.
I mean, I think they were probably all involved in it too. Like I know my cousin was abused.
Yeah.
So, but I think about they never even did anything. I got a call like a year later by a different officer, and they said that they found my file and nothing had been done. And they wanted to know if there was any truth to it. But before calling me, of course, they called my mom, who was like my primary abuser. And then she called me and told me exactly what to say and dared me to say anything else. And she had already given them the story, and they just made it so easy because by the time they called me, it was like they were reading the script.
Yeah.
And they said, this is what your mom said happened. Is this true? Yes or no? So all I had to do was say yes or no. And at that point, it's like, how many times do you have to not be believed?
Yeah.
And then they just close the case and move on.
Yeah, and I don't know what they said, like I don't know what trigger words they used and all that because I didn't understand all that back then. But whatever they did, I was just like, no, it's not true.
I could see it like really being a test for you. Like, that was a test, then let's test her again. And if she tells, then we're going to pull her back in and do more programming. Like, they just follow you and keeps testing you to make sure it's staying in place and things like that.
And leaving people in place so they can come along and reinforce the program, reinforce the denial, over and over.
All right. So this continues until the child becomes so terrified that they deny instantly, no matter what is done to them or how intense the pressure becomes. Now they'll just deny, because it's like climbing a mountain to actually have it in you, to build it up in you, to break this programming, to go the different way. It's just easier just to, okay, yes, whatever you say,
It's survival, though. You're trying to survive. That's the most base instinct that we have.
Yeah,
is to survive, and that's what they're doing.
How can I survive? Right. From there, programmers often create specific parts whose very names are denial, or something similar. They are created to monitor the system and step in any time the body becomes unsafe, meaning anytime someone starts thinking about telling. These parts can flood the body with denial and insist that didn't happen. You don't remember. It's all made up. They can also be trained to punish other parts of the body itself for speaking. So let's talk about that a little bit. We talked about how parts are made. So then when it's the enemy making them, he will create them for a purpose. Like there's a specific purpose he's creating them. And he'll often give them names, jobs, train them, to have very good eyesight, to have very good telepathy, to be a beta sex kitten, to be a programmer, just all these different jobs. So here, this part is created to make sure the denial stays in place, right? All right. Any comments about that?
I'm wondering how that happens if you've got a part that their job is to orchestrate denial. How does that work in your system when you have a memory that comes back, and is it the denial part will come up and begin to say things like, to reinforce the programming, this isn't true, that it didn't happen that way.
They're lying. I've heard that a million times. They're lying. They're not telling the truth.
That will come up and just speak it in your mind, or will they just take over, or how does that work?
Do you want to take this?
I don't think that I've had any parts that considered themselves to have that job that came to the front.
Okay.
Now, I have a lot of those parts. I did have, like, I would have littles come out in session and they would start saying, this is not real, this is all made up. But I often felt that way too. And but it's, when you're in it, you can't discern it. You still feel like you're the adult and you're in the front, but you don't know a script's running. You don't know, but it's so embedded. And it's almost like a subconscious thing too. But then there's also other parts. Like, it's not going to be just one part that has that job. There's going to be multiple parts working together to, like, if this happens, then this part's job is to do whatever, to punish the body, to activate programming to take you out or make you take yourself out or something like that. So then the denial part knows, if I don't convince them that this isn't real, then this part is going to do this. And that means I have to, like, it's self-preservation almost. Like, they're so invested in doing their job.
Of survival.
Yeah. Okay.
And the enemy has layered it with so many of the parts. It's like a very big job.
I kind of feel like what happens sometimes is when you get ready to tell something, like you have a memory and you're going to share that memory, to get that out. Then it's like there's something that runs, like inside your system, and runs to the very front and says, whoa, stop. You are crazy.
Do you feel like it comes out though? Like,
no,
like a part, it's just like,
no,
it's
just
front
like it's
thought, like that's all you can think.
Like it just like comes not completely to the surface, but just right there. You know how people say, like, at the edge of your tongue, it's at the tip of my tongue. It's like that. It's at the tip of your tongue, and it won't go away. Like, it is extremely persistent, and it's like its voice radiates through your entire body.
It's almost like having tunnel vision too.
Yeah, like tunnel vision. Like
it's all you can see.
It's like
you can't. For me, I couldn't hold on to the truth and that at the same time. It is one or the other.
I feel like it acts like
beginning.
I feel like it's terrified. Like it's scared. It is very,
it's
very scared. The second that you start to speak it, it immediately it's terrified, and it just like it sends the adrenaline rush through your body, and it's just like it just rushes all the way up and comes all the way right to the surface, and it's like, stop, you're not doing this. You're crazy, you're lying.
That's coming from the double bind.
I was just going to say that's because they put a double bind in there, that if you do, then this will happen.
And so it's terrified, and it is so scared that it always pushes that denial to the front to try to keep you from doing it.
Yep. Yep. They've had a lot of time to figure this out, and it's not like they haven't done a good job, but Yahweh, right? But Yahweh. And that's the thing about this podcast. I really want to focus on what Yahweh's doing. Like, we have to lay the foundation of what the enemy did, because that came first. But what is he doing? What's Yahweh doing about it, and how he's redeeming and setting the captives free? So, that is a big thing that they've used, but he will undo it for us. All right, so for these parts, denial was safety. Denial was loyalty. Denial was survival. If a system starts to break down and memories bleed through, the denial altars will also provide a plausible excuse or cover story. Denial altars are very invested. So that cover story, everybody has a cover story. I remember, especially in the beginning when I was learning how to help, Yahweh would say, okay, you've made it through the cover story. Because somebody would come in with a story, which ultimately was not the real story at all. It's what they were living. It's what they believed their life was. But then once it starts, breaking down the lies of the enemy, then you see what your truth is. So not what they've even implanted in you to believe, like, oh no, I was, a college student over in Europe. No, you weren't.
It kind of works the same way with the other abuses, though, right? Like I don't know what you would call them. It's very hard to come up with a term for some of this stuff, like for the standard abuses, the things that have nothing to do with SRA, because then you remember, oh, my grandfather abused me, and then you don't look any further.
Yes, that's a good point. Very good point.
There are like cover traumas.
Yep, absolutely.
There are smaller traumas, which are horrible traumas. I'm not minimizing them at all.
Yeah.
But they are nothing compared to what's in there deeper, but a lot of times you'll stop. But you're like, oh, okay, I found the trauma. I know what it is.
Yeah.
I can deal with this and I can move on. And you don't realize it's like an onion with never-ending layers. No matter how much you peel, it feels like you just keep going. But Yahweh knows where the bottom of that is.
Yes.
And he can peel all of it.
Yeah.
We just can't do it by ourselves.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, but that is a good point, that a lot of times you think, oh no, I was just abused, in this way, not to minimize it, but that's what you think. But the reality is so much deeper for so many, not all, but for so many. So the denial altars are very invested in doing their job because they don't want to be punished and because they believe the survivor's life depends on it. But denial keeps the survivor spinning in place for years, going nowhere. It harms the system, exhausts everybody, and prevents true progress. One of the first steps for dealing with denial is identifying and breaking the vow that was made to not remember. So you'll always find at the bottom of this, with the splits and with a lot of these things, that there was some kind of agreement. That agreement could be a vow, it could be a contract, it could be different things. So that's a crucial step in the healing, is to find that spot, that time when you made that vow, and to go back to that and then come out of agreement with it and break it and things like that.
What age is that usually when you're doing a therapy? What age is it that typically you find those vows are made? Is there a certain age group that's typically pressured into making
they
those
start
vows?
young?
I know. I was gonna say, like, when can you start talking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the vows are offered
Like
from a very young age to be quiet.
Yes.
Like, yeah, you just here, and you can have whatever
Before
it
you can
is,
even talk,
or you can
you
do
know.
this.
Yeah, there's because the manipulation, like if you have a 2 or 3 year old and you're holding an orange and you're asking that kid, what is this? Oh, it's an orange. No, it's an apple. And they're telling them, no, it's an apple, and they're shocking them and then asking them again until they start to question their own reality. And then it's like, eventually they're going to not know what is truth, what is.
So there's like an inner vow made. It's not always something that's a structured, I'm making a vow to be silent. It's an inner vow that I will never call that an orange again.
Well, sometimes it can be both, but the goal of that is to confuse them and to confuse the child and make them not be able to trust themselves. They can't trust their own logic. They can't trust. So then when somebody out here is saying, if you come into agreement with this, this is how it stops. They're not even going to question it. They're just going to do it because they want it to stop. But a lot of the denial is like, you can't trust your own instincts because they've broke that.
Yeah.
I call that the, instead of denial program for that particular piece of it, I call that you're crazy programming. Because your first thoughts that you always fall back on, no, you're crazy. No, you're crazy. Because if you're crazy, then you didn't get hurt. You know what I mean? If you're crazy, then, that's such a relief that didn't happen to me.
Yeah.
You see? So that's why I call it that. Because I notice with a lot of survivors, it's all the time, I guess I'm just crazy. Because it's just in everything, right? I mean...
Yeah, and
crazy's your middle name.
Well, that's on purpose, you know.
Yeah. I think for me, it wasn't that I'm crazy, but it was that the people that were helping me were crazy.
Yeah, they were crazy
like,
for
you're
thinking
crazy
that,
for even
for
thinking
believing that
happened to me. Like,
I
clearly
didn't
that
really
didn't
have a
happen
lot of
to
people
me.
happening. I didn't have many people helping me, so.
Well, unfortunately, that's the case for
so
many survivors because there's only a few places you can go right now.
I haven't had a lot of experience with that, what you're talking about, because it's like.
I mean, it's just, even with working with Warrior Bride in the beginning, they're telling me clearly you have these red flags and like,
and it's hard to process. It is. It's hard.
Lay it out. But it doesn't feel like you're in denial. That's what's so hard. It's like, you're not trying to deny anything. You cannot identify the denial.
Yeah, you can't.
Because you don't have the memories.
You can't fathom that could ever have possibly happened. You just don't see how. Yeah. Like, you go back and you double check. Okay, well, if this ritual happened when I was 3, okay, let me see where was I at when I was 3 years old. Do I have pictures of when I was 3? You know what I'm saying? Like, you can go back and you can be like, this can't be true.
They're so good at it.
They cover their bases.
Oh,
they do.
It all covered.
I'll never forget with one of them I was working with, and we get this information from the survivors. Right. It's not like we make it up as a healer. It's like literally the parts come up and tell us, right? So, they told me their whole story, but then I was looking and I found pictures of, this girl was in school and she was in band. So how could this have happened? She must be lying to me. Yeah, but they know to cover their bases. Just stick them in this. Put, especially, can you imagine with AI today, how much nowadays, they can do it?
Please.
Yeah, and so then you think, you dismiss it because, even though it was one picture, and it was a certain age, it wasn't necessarily the ages we were talking about, that it must not be true.
Yeah, and that's because, and also, too, because you don't know anything about the spirit realm.
Yes.
So you don't realize that you don't necessarily have to have been in your body physically taken to Paris. They could spiritually take you there. And that's like a whole other ballgame of it.
Yeah, they can. But there's a next level of physically taking you there too. Yes. So they do physically take often as well.
Yes.
There's a whole mixture of it. They have so many rituals. If you ever look at their calendar, like they are nonstop, needing everyone's participation for this sacrifice and this ritual and this offering and this, it's like nonstop. Like we have a handful of holidays in general. They have a holiday a few a month, it seems like. A few a month, really.
And our holidays are to celebrate Yahweh.
I am right.
And they don't involve
totally different deal. Yeah, absolutely.
Completely different thing.
Okay. All right, we're ready? But denial keeps the survivor spinning in place for years, going nowhere. And literally, sometimes their heads, when they go into this, will start spinning. So many, I'll be like, stop that head moving. Don't move it. Because I knew that they were throwing them into a denial. I don't remember a denial. It harms the system and exhausts everybody, prevents true progress. One of the first steps for dealing with denial is identifying and breaking the vows that were made to not remember. Many parts in the system have made these vows. Even the Christian host, while a true believer, is often heavily programmed and may have taken vows of amnesia, which keeps the denial in place. A common vow is remember to forget, forget to remember. Survivors need to break the vows and give Yeshua the permission to prepare them to remember and to help them accept the memories they get, to believe their parts and when their parts share memories with them. So let's break down a few things there. First of all, the Christian presenter. Just to be clear for those who don't understand, typically the host person, the presenter, is the one that maybe goes about their job during the day. They maybe go to their job, they go to church, wherever they go. And they usually fit into society fairly well, and they believe the cover story. They believe the cover story that they are a Christian, they had a great life, maybe a few things happened, but they're, that's what they believe.
They're usually the one that seeks out help.
They're usually the one that comes, in to get some help. Exactly. But even they have made vows. So again, we got to find all these vows. And we used to think that the front part, which we call the light part, the light side, because in this whole system that the enemy is setting up, you have a light side and a dark, or a front and a back. I'd rather say front and back, because the back side is really the ones that had to go through the most horrific things. They were the ones that would come up for the rituals or for the abuse and things like that. But the point here is, the truth is, the front presenter is very programmed as well, because they're programmed to believe that they are all these things. You'll often find them being ministers. You'll often find them being worship leaders. And they are in that program. They're in that presentation, and that's what they know, because it hasn't been their time to get healing, or they've ignored it. They have chosen not to, or they just don't know yet, Any thoughts or comments about that?
Well, I think it's very strategic of the enemy to begin working in the life of a young child to, when we read the scriptures, at least previously in my life, when you would read the scriptures about wolves in sheep's clothing, you were operating on the presumption that everyone is operating in a place of making their own free will choices. But what we find with programming is that you have innocent children that are strategically altered in their ability to even know what's true and what's not true, and forced to, life or death, conform to a pattern of behavior, to where there's the back part who must operate as a wolf, when you're looking at participating in rituals, because they can't not, or they'll be tortured. Then you have the presenter, who would be the sheep, that is programmed to be the sheep. And so that totally broke my paradigm of understanding about that scripture, because these haven't been choices that these children made in their lives. It wasn't someone choosing to be a wolf in a sheep's clothing. It is an orchestration of the enemy in the most diabolical way. And so we have this entire population of sheep that, if they were left to their own accord, would most likely just be sheep, right? But this strategic working, like you're saying, they're leading worship, and they're in ministry positions, really believing that they're serving their king.
Yeah.
And so it's so strategically mind-blowing, just the strategy of it, and it makes perfect sense because your presenter part is so good at being what they've been programmed to be.
And they totally believe it.
Yeah, they have no idea.
And a lot of their actions during certain times are those of ministers or worship leaders or whatever, but then that's for a period of time during the day, kind of thing.
The Christian presenter cannot, especially at first, handle the fact that they had any involvement in anything, that they've made any agreements, because that's the biggest, to me, I think, the biggest factor of the now programming is there is no way I would have done that. I would not do that. Never in a million years would I do that.
And it's kind of like the Christian presenter, I think a lot of times their stuff is more like agree to have amnesia, agree to take somebody somewhere, or agree to like the smaller things, but before they do any of that, they've already made the agreement to not remember. They don't know they're doing it.
Right.
Like that's the really hard part is like
they really don't know, and they really honestly think they would have never done it. It's
not like they're going to church and worshiping and doing this stuff and then going home and doing rituals with awareness.
With awareness, right?
Yeah, there's no awareness there.
It feels like 24/7 you're serving the Lord, and you're not really doing like you would never do anything like that.
Well, I'm sure most of them have no idea when you're dissociating. Like you don't even know you are. That's the thing. You have no idea you disassociated.
But the presenter is typically the one that comes in for ministry.
Yes, and they come to.
So there's got to be something in their lives that prompts them to seek.
Depression, anxiety, not being able to sleep at night, being on too many medications. You'll have some memories like my uncle came in my bedroom at night, or, but you don't. They want you to have some memories because they need you to have a cover story. So those are the memories that usually you come with. I think Yahweh's revealing more because it seems like we have more survivors coming now that kind of already know that, hey, there's something going on with SRA. But I think it's maybe because of all the media that's been out, the survivors. Because like when I came, it wasn't like that.
No, nobody was talking about it
5 years ago.
Yeah.
And so it's, there's so much out there now that you start identifying, like, wait a minute.
Well, that's why it's so important to talk about it, and for people to come out and tell their stories, not to teach people how to do rituals or anything like that. It's not that, but it's so, like, you need the knowledge because who knows what little thing that is going to make that person realize, wait a minute, maybe I need help.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point, is just whatever you can to get as many people as possible to realize that they need to try to get help.
Yeah.
I mean, I was on a deliverance team for 2 years. I was leading a deliverance team for 2 years before I came. And that happened because my therapist told me that I was healed and sent me on that assignment. And I didn't know that they were a handler. I didn't know that was a thing back then. But you can look back now and it's so clear. It's like textbook. But, it just felt normal at the time. Yeah. And, that deliverance team took me in and trained me. And I don't have any awareness even now of doing anything wrong or not saying I never made a mistake, but purposely being nefarious about anything. I don't have any awareness of anything like that. But goodness, how scary. I mean, there's so many that end up doing that. And I've prayed and prayed that any damage that I did would be reversed and, that Yahweh would just be merciful and heal those things because you just truly don't know. And everybody around you are part of the group and you don't know it. And so they're encouraging you to do it. They're telling you how great you're doing at it. And it's like, how do you know?
Yeah. Well, we have to remember that this is fallen angel, ancient knowledge that these people are using. So this has been, this has had a long time to get perfected. And we're just now trying to figure it out. But thank God for Yahweh because he knows all. And if it wasn't for him, we would never be able to do this work. Anyone who says they can without him are putting a Band-Aid on it or they're reprogramming or something. Yeah. That's my opinion. Because I just don't see how you could ever even begin to do this work without him. But also, the other thing is kind of a warning with the whole deliverance team and stuff. And let me just say, this isn't just churches. It isn't just deliverance. It isn't just worship. This is, all areas of our world. They have risen to the top. But with the deliverance teams and stuff like that and the churches, they want you in there because you have those giftings. Because as they do this trauma, these giftings, these different things get exercise and you can see in the spirit realm like nobody else can see, somebody that hasn't been through all this stuff. You can hear things better. You can, smell. You can do all these things, all these senses that are just so heightened that somebody who hasn't gone through this just doesn't have. And so they're like embracing you, thinking, you're a prophet. You are like a prophet like no one else. You are, this, that, and the other. Well, the whole time the enemy's just using that. And of course there's going to be some truth, but there's going to be some twisting. And so one of the things we always do in the healing is ask them if they're willing to give back all their spoils and giftings and talents and things that they received from the kingdom of darkness. Are you willing to give it back to Yeshua? And then he will give you back what he wants to give you for the kingdom of light. And usually it is your original gift, because the enemy is looking for those gifts,
right,
so that he can manipulate them. So usually he'll give them back, but it's used in a different manner, in a way that's advancing to his kingdom and filled with love and goodness and all that kind of stuff. So you have to watch for those things. So the other thing I want to mention on that is you have to give Yeshua permission. So with all of this, the enemy is very legalistic. And when you talk about, did they consciously do it or what? He only needs a little vow, a little agreement, and he's going to take that and run. And so we have to not only want to break it, but give Yeshua permission, like, okay, I'm ready to not have that amnesic wall any longer. I'm ready to face that fact of what happened to me. I'm ready to hear the real story. And give him permission to come into those places and go with you into those places. And that's when you start to see some things happen, some walls come down and stuff like that, right? So survivors have to make the conscious decision not to give in to denial and keep repeating the program phases like, I don't remember, I don't know. They need to recognize that they can remember, they can receive help, and they can call on Yeshua. Real healing begins when denial is set aside and the survivor starts talking to their parts about getting out, getting free, and refusing to serve the dark side, but believe in the lie that Yeshua doesn't love them. Denial begins to break the moment you decide that it's time to come out. When I think about that, when it's talking about, it starts when you start talking to the parts. We're going to start a class coming up in January or 2026 that is internal evangelism, where you start to get the parts talking about, hey, we don't have to believe this lie anymore. We can believe the truth. The truth is Yeshua is good. The truth is that there is a way out. We can switch teams, that he will forgive us. And so that's a new class coming in 2026 that Deborah's going to lead. So that's a very important activity that has to occur internally. When working with denial, it's crucial to identify the fear driving it. Logic alone can't break denial because it's rooted in fear and reinforced through torment and double binds. Survivors have to make the decision to not give in to denial and keep repeating the program phases like, I don't remember, I don't know. They need to recognize that they can remember, they can receive help, and they can call on Yeshua. The real healing begins when denial is set aside and the survivor starts talking to the parts about getting out, getting free, and refusing to serve the dark side by believing the lies that Yahweh doesn't love them. So what's really key here is it's the start talking to your parts. We're actually going to start a class in 2026 that's called Internal Evangelism, because it's so important for the truth to get to all those different parts where they understand that they've been fed a lot of lies, that the truth is they won't be, taken out if they do this. This won't necessarily happen. They'll be okay. There's so many people that, they're so afraid to do this step, and then they take the step and like, oh, okay, that wasn't so bad. And so they've got to know the truth. So we're starting that class in 2026, Internal Evangelism. So I'm really excited about that. Real healing begins when this is set aside. They start talking about it. When working with denial, it's crucial to identify the fear driving it. Logic alone can't break denial because it's rooted in fear and reinforced through torment and the double binds. The double binds is, if you do this, this will happen. If you do this, this will happen. And it's where you're just frozen just about, because they're threatening you with something really bad no matter which way you turn. So many people are like basically frozen when they come because they don't know and because they've been stripped of their ability to think for themselves. I'll never forget when I said to a survivor, she kept saying, well, this guy says this and this, and it was like every single thing, every move she made, she had to go through this rabbi. And I was like, well, what rabbi needs to be teaching you instead of going through him is to think for yourself, to use that brain Yahweh gave you. Like, what do you mean? He says this, you got to call him and ask him this. Like, since when is his brain better than yours? Well,
it's going to work against everything that the scripture is encouraging you to do, because he's saying, draw near to me and I'll draw near to you, and seek first the kingdom and his righteousness, and the seeking and drawing is being impeded because you can't believe you're set up with denial inside of yourself. And then there's that double bind to where if you're trying to seek the Lord's answers in your life, then you've got these programs that pop up that cause you to get stuck and feel like there's something that you have to go back to where you were saying that there's some kind of self-harm or something that'll pop up that's going to stop you from having that relationship with him. So you have to ask other people what to do because you don't know how to think for yourself.
Yeah.
And part of our faith walk is our mind and our spirit and soul seeking the Lord, having relationship with him. And so how can you have relationship with him if your own free will has been impeded to such a degree? That's a double bind. It's like you have no place to turn because you're stuck there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll never forget the look. Like, it was a natural shock that was even an option. I was like, wow, that's really
But even with that person, they didn't feel like it was a hindrance. Like, they genuinely felt like that was God's will for them to do that.
Mm-hmm.
That is exactly what Yahweh wanted them to do. And I think there's got to be parts that have that assignment or something that...
You mean to go somewhere else besides
him? Besides Yahweh?
Just talk to somebody else or seek some other person for input?
And make decisions on your own?
That's his will for her to come under his leadership. And
I see.
Like, it wasn't like a negative thing. Like, she was fully convinced that was Yahweh's will. That was doing Yahweh's will.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me wonder, is there parts that's their assignment, is to keep you busy doing the other stuff in place of actually having relationship?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think it's amazing. Like, I have so much on my plate, go, go, go. And the minute I like to make a space to just quiet myself, like, oh, but when I'm busy, I'm like, why aren't you talking to me? Tell me. But then the minute I'm quiet, I'm like, oh, well, it's interesting. You're talking to me so much. I've been talking, but you've been running, not hearing, We've got to quiet ourselves. So we have to give them space to vent and express the fears and the possibilities. They're holding all these beliefs to be sorted through, exposing the lies that the denial programming was built upon. So much of this is replacing the lies with the truth. Mm-hmm. Once the survivor does make progress and start to come out of denial, they will go through a deep grieving process. Nobody can truly prepare you for the weight of the grief, but Yeshua can help manage it and move you through with his mercy and grace. I mean, it is a lot to come up, think that you had the white picket fence, think you were in Truman Show, and then all of a sudden you find out you were in Freddy, Krueger. And that was your life.
Yeah, that's a lot.
But the thing is, that's not the life of just one or two. This is millions and millions of children that this is happening to. And it's all leading towards, the end times and the enemy trying to build his army and stuff like that. And that's where we get the greater exodus, because instead of him being able to do what he's put all this effort into, Yeshua is pulling us out. We're going to leave Babylon, and he's going to take us to the promised land. So this is where helpers sometimes get tripped up because grieving can last a long time depending on the amount of trauma. The grieving process needs as much time as it needs to move through the different stages of grief and truly move the stored trauma out of the body. And that's a point too, that it is stored in the body. You know, there's some teaching, some books and stuff of the body keeps the score. And it truly does. Like, the trauma is stored in your body. And so in this process, we have to face it all, find out where the original point is, and do all the stuff that we do in terms of getting that part, if they're in agreement, to forgive, repent, you know, break the soul ties, do all the things that we do, deal with things legally. But we got to get it out of the body as well. So you got to get it out of you have to take this process with the soul, with the spirit, and then even with the body as part of it, of releasing it out. And that can be a really, you know, challenging thing.
There was a time that we were ministering together, and you had a survivor there, and a part came up. And I remember it was one of the first times that I experienced a grown adult suddenly experiencing at that moment being surrounded by snakes and things like that.
Oh.
And that child part that came up was experiencing that. It was like I was watching a 4-year-old reacting to being in that scenario. Mm-hmm. And there was terror and fear, and everything was there. I mean, the flailing and the fighting to get away, and just the recoiling. And you were able to, with Yeshua, minister there. And later on, I walk this child part through a restorative understanding and easing all. I just saw literally the Holy Spirit come and work in this. But to know that there is a part of you that is holding on to all that was happening right there. This is something that this person has carried since they were 4 years old, and mm-hmm. it has been in the body. That experience has been held in there. That mm-hmm. terror, the turmoil, the fear, and it was just behind an amnesic wall. But to have something like that's within your physical body, it's in your mind, and even though you don't, it's protected by an amnesic wall, but it's still there.
Yeah.
And so just to move through releasing those things into the hands of your Creator and into the ministry of the Holy Spirit, it's like each time that experiencing the clients going through these things, you can see the physical release in their body from those things.
Yeah.
And so it's no wonder that you would have depression and anxiety and the things you were saying.
Well, and it's also kind of like surgery. Like, your body hurts when it, like, let's say you get something pulled out, then it has to heal. Yeah. Like, it can hurt, and it takes a little bit to recover. So often after these sessions, they need to go in a time of, like, go to bed for 24 hours or whatever and really rest and nurse themselves until they, are ready to, because it really is a spiritual surgery. The grieving process needs as much time as possible. Grief can look like not much progress is being made if the helper doesn't understand the power and the necessity of grieving. Survivors will need a lot of support during the process. So that is something that we just really wanted to speak to you all about and help you understand a little bit about what the survivors go through as they start to go in their healing. There's different steps, and everybody's a little bit different, but there is commonality. So this is a very common program that comes up right away, but it also comes up throughout the process because it's layered so much, because they want to they're doing so much to try to not let this get out, not let people understand how to restore, to set them free. And so it's layered in there. It's layered with threats. It's layered with the need to survive. But with Yeshua and his replacing the lies with the truth, there is freedom. So anybody have anything to say as we wrap this episode up about denial?
I just think it's 2 steps forward or what is that? 1 step forward, 2 steps back. That's how it feels sometimes.
Yeah.
But I would just say, like you were saying, the most important part is talking to the parts and letting them know, start teaching them the truth. I think equally important is journaling, because you have something to look back on when you don't have access to what you've learned.
Mm-hmm.
And because when you're in that moment and the denial script is running, like, it's all you have. You don't have the truth.
Right.
But if you're journaling the things that you're learning about your system, and you're like, can go back and read why you're choosing to do this. Why am I coming out of denial? What's the evidence?
Mm-hmm.
What's the Lord been showing me? That really, really helped me when, like, there's just certain pivotal points that I always go back to, and those are my grounding points.
Yeah.
And I think with denial, especially, if I didn't have that, like, I would still be going around that mountain every day, because it's just so, that is your normal. It's your natural instinct almost. It's so, just put in so deeply.
Yeah. All right. So thank you for being with us as we dig into the denial programming. Join us in the next episode when we deal with what comes after that. Once they start to realize, oh, there is some truth here, then the anger starts coming up. So join us next episode as we dig into that and how to deal with it and help the survivor walk out of it. And again, if we can help you in any way, shape, or form, if you're a survivor, go to www.warriorbrideministries.com. There's appointments. There's about 10 classes. There's programs, all free of charge. So don't let anything stand in your way. Take that step and go and book an appointment. If you want to get involved, we need you. We need you for whatever you're being called on. There's so many different needs, admin, emails, donations. There's so many things that you could help get involved. And so if you feel the Lord's calling, please also go to the website and select volunteer or donation. And we look forward to meeting you. So until next time, God bless, and we'll see you.